I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tina Martin.
And here we are with Cork and Journey.
And so we're going to get into one of our very first winery interviews. Thank you so much, Anton. Tell us about Gandona.
Yeah. Well, first of all, welcome, of course, to Gandona.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
And it is beautiful.
It's a really nice day, too. So we got really lucky here on Sunday morning, right?
Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah, we did. Just absolutely gorgeous. We're here, what is it now? July 25th, 6th, something like that.
Yeah.
We're on the 20th. This is our third day of a 21-day wine tour.
Great.
So,
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
And what better way to start it off than here?
I
Yeah,
know.
well, thank you very much for coming here this morning. So, Gandona, I'll tell a little bit more about the history of Gandona. So the owner is Manuel and Cristina Pires. They were born and raised in Portugal. And Manuel grew up really on the farm of his grandfather, where they used to grow grapes and olives and that sort of thing, whatever you do and grow in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
And Manuel really liked that. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to become a vintner, a farmer, just like grandfather. You see, like how you showed me old photos of he was like a 4 or 5-year-old boy, like stumping grapes, in a little barrel. So that's what he wanted to do. But life came kind of in between. They ended up in Connecticut, the whole family. So then he started a business with his brother. It was called Morse Watchman. And it is a company that had anything to do with sort of key security lock boxes. So that's why he, kind of made some money. So in the late 50s, it's like, okay, this is not really what I want to do. I really want to be that vintner. So he came out here in 2006 and purchased this property. So it's about 140 acres here in the middle of Pritchard Hill.
Uh-huh.
We have about 20 acres of vineyard. So he started that in 2006.
This is the cat.
We have a visitor going.
The name is the cat. Has followed us all over the winery.
So he started in 2006. He hired also Philippe Melka as a consultant for the vineyard, to build this production facility, because none of this was here. Only some of the old buildings that you saw in the vineyard. So this was all since been built. We have a cave. We have our production facility with all concrete tanks, which is kind of unusual here in Napa Valley. But that comes back in the style of our wines. A little bit about the name Gandona. That was actually the nickname of his grandfather. It means sort of humble man, if you translate it to English. So his grandfather had a really good standing in the village. They would give a lot of things and produce to the people in the village. Portugal was very poor in the 60s and 70s. So he got that nickname as Mr. Gandona. So for Manuel being all inspired, his grandfather and growing up in Portugal, was kind of an easy way to find a name, for this winery.
It's a great name.
Yeah,
Very, very nice. All right.
Yeah.
So we're going to taste 4 wines today?
Yeah. So we have a Chardonnay, and it's actually the only grapes that we purchase. We do not grow Chardonnay here in the vineyard. It's a little warm on Pritchard Hill for Chardonnay. So we purchased these from the Sonoma coast, from the Ritchie vineyard.
Okay.
Kent Ritchie there has a good-sized vineyard. Has been farming it for many, many, many years. So they're very high demand. So you don't get too many grapes from it. So we make about 100 cases on a good year, if we can get the grapes.
But it's just to kind of round out your portfolio. You're big Chardonnay fans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little Burgundy style kind of Chardonnay. We have Philippe Melka, he is a real Frenchman. Came here about 25 years ago, but he definitely still has a lot of that French influence.
So what do you guys do with this? You mentioned your concrete tanks, but I imagine there's some oak on this as well?
Yeah, there is. Actually, the Chardonnay really pretty much only sees oak.
Okay.
So it's oak fermented, and then it goes into the oak barrels, and it sits on the lees in the oak barrels for about 18 months. So some of it is new, about a third of the barrels are new. So that's why we get sort of the new oak on there.
So you're basically doing, so you said a third, so you got 1/3 new, then 1/3 just neutral, kind of thing.
Yeah. The rest is basically like neutral, but it's all like oak fermented, and then it goes in oak to age as well. And then we'll filter it and bottle it. So after about 2 years, we'll have it.
Okay.
That's nice.
Yeah.
A lot of citrus on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, of course, in Sonoma County, it's a great area to grow grapes. I mean, I think if one camera is kind of focused on the mountains, because the mountain range you see in the background there, those are the Mayacamas.
Right.
So that's really the border between Sonoma and Napa County. So it's a lot cooler on the other side. So much more suitable for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
And the cat is everywhere.
The cat is everywhere. I could.
No, she's
The
fine.
cat's right.
She's fine. She's
Yeah.
perfect. Man, this is good. So you do just 100 cases, you said?
Yeah, about 100 cases. Yep. So our total production is about 1,500 cases of wine. So, of course, mostly reds. All the reds are all from the estate vineyard that we just kind of saw this morning.
And you were telling us earlier, we're on top of Pritchard Hill.
Yes.
Yeah. And so kind of volcanic soil and kind of what makes Pritchard Hill so special.
I think it's more sort of that location. It is sort of a mountain, has mountain like qualities, but it's not as high, for instance, as Howell Mountain or Spring Mountain. So it doesn't get as cool, but it does have sort of the soil that a lot of times you find in mountains. Mountains normally you don't really have too much of the topsoil, right? Because it's all been drained down to the river over the years. So that's more in the valley floor. So here you don't have a lot of topsoil, but for grapes and varietals, especially Cabernet, that's just perfect. It's just a lot of rocks. There's just not a lot to go on for them. Create very small berries. Like our vineyard too, we have berries. Our Cabernet Sauvignon berries are like small blueberries. So they're very concentrated though. But we do also need a lot of berries to make some wine. In some parts of the vineyard, you only get about a ton per acre yields, which is very low. Napa Valley floor, probably more 4 to 6 tons per acre. So it's that's why also, we have 20 acres of vineyard, but our production is only about 1,500 cases because we just, don't grow as many grapes.
That's crazy.
What is one of the best things about your job?
Doing things like this, I think. Going out on Sunday morning and just enjoy some wine. I've always been interested in wine, but I really like more the social aspect of wine than the production, if that makes sense.
Yep.
For me, it's just like wine is really sort of a beverage, right? That it's hard to just go sit somewhere and just drink by yourself. You usually don't do that. You just want to hang out with friends and family. I think that's what wine does. And for me, that's sort of the thing that I really enjoy about the wine.
Well, what was your first wine job?
My first wine job was actually at a winery called Cane. It's on Spring Mountain. They make a wine called Cane 5. So I'll tell you a little bit. Actually, of course, we're now here in Napa Valley, but we used to live in Florida for quite a long time because that's where I met my wife. And so at some point, I was really interested in wine, and I saw that the International Sommelier Guild was doing courses at the culinary school in Orlando. And it's like, great, I'm more of like a hands-on person. So it's like, I'll do that course. It was actually every Sunday for about 26 weeks. Start at 9 in the morning and, sometimes 5, 6 o'clock at night it would be done. We tasted all the wines blind. So you studied during the week. On Sunday was all wine tasting. And that really opened up this whole world for me of having wines from all over the world. Then it was like, okay, this is great. Maybe it would be really nice to kind of work in the industry. So that's kind of how, in the end, we sort of ended up here in Napa Valley, and I started working in the winery.
Because you went to law school, right?
I did, yes. Yeah.
Did you become a lawyer?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. So I went to law school in the Netherlands, and then I also did a master's degree at Stetson in St. Petersburg, Florida. So actually, I started publishing. So I started publishing law books. So there's a publishing company out there called Vanderplas Publishing. But, as you see, books can be a little boring, right? And law books especially, probably. So that's why I think the wine sort of kind of brought a little extra element to life.
That's wonderful.
So this first red?
First red. So tasting from left to right today, the first red is the Encosta. Encosta means hill slope in Portuguese.
Okay.
Well, you saw a vineyard. There's some slope there. So this is normally sort of our blend.
Okay.
I could say our Bordeaux blend, because we grow 3 grape varietals in the vineyard. We have Cabernet Sauvignon, we have Cabernet Franc, and we have Petit Verdot. So this is the wine that is mostly Cabernet. This one is actually 78% Cabernet Sauvignon.
Okay.
And then we blend some Cab Franc and Petit Verdot into it.
Oh,
so it's a
very nice.
2017 vintage. It is really kind of a beautiful wine. It's really the 17 vintage. I think it's a great vintage. And it's really just sort of now coming into its own, being about 5 years old.
Uh-huh.
It's really just opening up, and it becomes smoother and smoother kind of every time I taste it. This cap is really evolving right now in the bottle.
It really is. That's interesting.
And when do you think it's going to, hit its peak? How many years?
I think
to it?
another 2 years or so. Key is with all these Cabernets. I would say in general from Napa Valley, all the Cabernets, make sure that either they have some age on them or decant them long enough.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually had some of the Encosta this week, where I opened it up in the morning and I drank some in the evening, and it was just really, really beautiful.
So you
It was just
decanted it all
because it
day?
had that whole day of oxygen going in there. Because these wines are still so young, even at 5 years old, that they really need that oxygen to kind of mellow them out and bring them in better balance.
Yeah. We see that all the time. We talk about it all the time. We decant almost all the time. It's funny when you're at a restaurant and you're like, hey, would you decant this? I mean, it doesn't even matter if you're buying a $50 bottle of Cab, right?
Yeah.
Which is, they're going to charge you $100 plus for in the restaurant, right? But it's like, will you decant it? They're like,
Yeah. And plus the time, the time too. It's just like, I went to a restaurant last night. I've been there about an hour and a half, but there's really not enough time for this wine to decant. And after an hour and a half, I'm done with the wine,
Right.
It's done.
right.
We're ready for the next
That's right.
one.
We went out last night to Charlie Palmer's
Mm-hmm.
Steakhouse.
Nice. Yeah.
And what did we get? It was Steph Curry's label that he's got, right? And it was a Cab Franc blend, and it was pretty good. But we basically had been out all day, and so we're like drinking. It's like and we
corked it back up and took it back to the
Yeah.
hotel.
Tina amazingly with the decanter holding her bottle hand perfectly, so not a drop.
Wow, that's
Didn't
pretty
spill a
good.
drop and poured it right in.
But then that after a day of wine tasting.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Pretty impressive. And then there we were.
I have skills.
It was a PG show. So, but then later that evening, so we finished, we had dinner, like we're done, we're back, and we're just kind of kicking out on the deck and just relaxing. And we're like, hey, wow, this has really gotten better.
Yes.
And it was
does.
probably 4 hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's true. And I usually don't always have the patience to do that. But it's really super beneficial. So I really tell everyone, that comes here, just, for our Gandona wines, but just in general, just for every sort of Napa Valley big Cabernet,
Yeah.
make sure you decant it.
So would
as
you
long
say
as
a
possible.
What's
couple
the
hours
minimum?
before dinner?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least I would say
At
at least
least-
a couple
at
hours.
least two.
At least a couple
Okay.
hours. Yeah.
Interesting.
So if you had to pick one wine to drink for the rest of your life, what would that wine be?
It'd be pretty easy. It would be a Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon.
Really?
Yes. It could very well be a Gandona.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, there's lots of really nice, beautiful wineries here in Napa Valley that make great Cabernet Sauvignon. But I think just this area, it's just sort of such a prime area to grow this grape varietal. It's probably the best part in the world, to grow Cabernet Sauvignon.
So we're hearing a lot of talk in the news these days about the climate and the heat waves and all of this. How is this affecting your grapes?
Well, it's certainly, of course, if you get with climate change or you get warmer years, that will really affect the grape varietals. Because there's really a difference. Like our vineyard is usually about 2-3 degrees cooler than like the Napa Valley floor. That's because we're up in elevation. We have some influence from Lake Hennessy. So if that is, much more than 2-3 degrees, it's going to have a big effect on the grapes. Lucky thing is for Napa Valley and sort of this area in like Sonoma County, we're still so close to the ocean. So if that ocean stays pretty cool, we don't get these huge heat spikes normally here, right? We had already a couple of days that were over 100 degrees, but it's not really more at this point than normal because the ocean really has an influence. But when you go further inland, of course, that's a whole different story because then you definitely have that. And you have to start looking for potentially different grape varietals. So right now with this climate, Cabernet Sauvignon does perfectly here. Maybe 50 years from now, it's all Tempranillo because, because it's really hot. So you need a grape that can deal with a lot more heat.
What's your favorite grape? Is it Cab?
Yes, Cab would be my favorite grape.
I go back and forth. I go on a Petit Syrah kick and a Cab Franc kick, and I don't know. But you always come back to this. This, by the way, is just beautiful.
Really good.
This is 110 a bottle?
Yes.
And how do people get your wines?
Well, we mostly kind of sell through the winery here. We have an allocation that once you visit here, you'll be on the allocation list. We'll send you out an email, release new vintages, and say, here, this is what's available. Obviously, we don't produce a lot of wine, so it sort of varies from what we have available depending on the vintage. But that's why we mostly sell our wine.
So no wine club?
We do not have a wine club. No,
okay.
No, it's just an allocation.
Get on the
list.
mailing list or an allocation list.
Yeah.
So you do reserve wine for people that say, I'd like to be on the allocation list?
Yes, we do. We do. And also for our Gandona, we release prior to the allocation. Of course, we keep wines so we can have guests like both of you here. And then we also keep a really good library as well, knowing that these wines will just continue to improve over the years. So we have a really good size library as well.
Nice. So the winery is Gandona, but then you have a wine called Gandona, but then the other wines are called Maya and Costa and Costa.
Correct. Okay. It's just to bring a little bit of sort of difference. I guess we could call it sort of the Gandona, and but we decided sort of for having kind of like this, the second label is the Encosta. So to give it a different name than the Gandona. The Maya actually means in the middle. And it's not because actually it's in the middle right now today, on the table too, but, it's actually where the blocks are in the vineyard. They're kind of the middle blocks because about in the middle of, on the property, also an elevation.
Well, speaking of Maya, let's move on to that. So that's actually how we found out about Gandona. There's a wine shop in Mission Viejo, California called A Hidden Vine. And we were there, and it was part of their wine club, believe it or not. They threw one bottle in on the high end side.
Yeah.
And we're blown away.
Yeah.
Blown away. We've got a review of it on our website, but just an absolutely amazing wine. I mean, like a Cabernet. It's funny. So we live in South Orange County, and the Laguna Canyon Winery is down there, and he makes all his wines there. He sources his grapes from here. And he makes them all down there. And he was over at our house one night, and I'm like, oh, you want to try something? And this guy, just winemaker forever, and just was blown away. It's the best Cab Franc he's ever had.
It is very, very interesting Cab Franc.
Yeah. So anyway, I had this with a winemaker, JJ, if you're out there, from Laguna Canyon Winery, and we sat around one night, and he just was like far and away said the most fantastic Cab Franc he'd ever had. And I kind of agree with it. I mean, what makes this so special?
Now, I think since now it reminds me a little bit, Antonio Belloni, the wine critic, he came here last year and sort of, critiquing our 2019s. So he tried to sell this Maya Cab Franc, the 19. And he wrote in his article about Napa Valley, and he said, the Maya is such a great project because it really shows what a Cabernet Franc could be in Napa Valley. And he was kind of disappointed that there's not more wineries, because there's quite a few wineries that do a Cab Franc, that they don't make them sort of from this sort of quality, this level, he felt like, there's a lot of potential here in Napa Valley to make really great Cab Franc. So we were kind of happy with that little shout out. But it kind of reminded me of that when you said that. Of course, Cab Franc is a very different grape than Cabernet Sauvignon. It is related. It's actually sort of a parent of the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Isn't it Cab Franc and Sauvignon Blanc?
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Yeah. So it was a parent, but it has a lot less tannins than the Cabernet Sauvignon has. And that's one thing that you really get in your glass, in your palate. It's really just like it doesn't really have sort of these tannins, so it's kind of smooth. But
I've never noticed that.
it has really earthy notes as well. Really earthy notes, kind of herbal notes. So that's why it's kind of been used, of course, as a blending grape. Because normally if you blend a wine, right, you're kind of looking, you have a wine, maybe say, Cab based or Merlot based, like they do in Bordeaux, and they're kind of looking, they feel like, hey, we could use a little bit more on the mid palate, we could use a little bit more color, we could use a little bit more whatever. So that's where the blending grape comes in. By blending those into it, you sort of kind of get that profile of wine that you really want. So Cab Franc certainly has certain characteristics. But now in this bottle, although it's 88% Cab Franc, we have blended a little bit Cabernet Sauvignon into it. 2019 is a very sort of easygoing vintage. So it could really use a little bit more structure that sort of the Cabernet brings to it. So we have blended about 12% Cabernet Sauvignon into this one as well. But
wow,
very good.
It's been showing really well, this wine. Still very young, though, 19.
Well, we were talking earlier, we did a comparison between the 18 and the 19. There was neck and neck. We thought the 18 maybe, but there were some extenuating circumstances in that tasting that we did. But we just love this. We've got a lot in our cellar.
And it's always interesting, of course, to compare vintages. We do that quite a bit here. As I said, we have a pretty good sized library of our Gandona. So from time to time, I really like to open up something older, and then our current vintage. And then, of course, it's really sort of a comparison. And what's interesting is just like, okay, well, now you can see where, say, we open up in 2012, and we're having the 17 here. It's like, hey, this wine, this is 5 years along. So this wine is going to taste much more like this one in 5 years. So then, so that's really nice.
Are you guys building up a library?
Yes. Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Do you ever do library tastings, those kind of things? Or?
We can do that. We can do library tastings as well. Yeah.
That would be fun to do.
Yeah,
We'll have to come back for that.
Yeah. No, sure.
So tell us a little bit about the winemakers.
Winemaking. So we have, ever since we sort of started the winery, we've been consulting with Philippe Melka. Philippe Melka is sort of, I think most viewers will actually probably have heard of him. Mm-hmm. French guy, came to Napa Valley about 25 years ago and has an enormous track record, enormous amount of experience. And that's really what you need, especially for sort of a young winery that Gandona is to bring in sort of that experience that somebody's had that's been here now for, 25 years. Then we have Adam Casto. He's the guy on site. So he came with Philippe about 9 years ago. So we've been here 9 years now.
Okay.
And he works hand in hand with Philippe to really make the wine. So he's really the guy that's here Monday through Friday, doing everything in the cellar. But we're a very small operation now. I'm always kind of joking with people. It's like, hey, I'm the guy, doing tastings, and I'm also answering the phone. So if the phone rings now, I'm not answering it. And then we have Adam. He does everything for the wine, and really everything else is sort of done by the owners. The owners are very hands-on. Christina, she's the lady that does all the bookkeeping and any shipping issues that might come up. And then Manuel, he will do everything else for the winery. He has the vision. Everything you kind of see here is really created by him.
Well, they're doing a great job.
Yeah, it really is amazing. So
should we move on to the...
I guess we're going to go for the big boy,
one?
huh?
Yeah, have to do it at some point.
So this comes in at $165 a bottle now. A $15 price increase from the 2018. That's inflation for you, right there. I'll say, worth every penny. And then your cab at $250. This is the 2017 we're going to try?
It's a 2017, yes.
Right. What do you want to say about it?
The Gandona. I always, with the Gandona, a lot of times if we do a tasting, I don't say an awful lot. I just kind of like to see people's expressions.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Oh my.
Wow, that's smooth.
That's why I usually don't say much.
That's smooth.
Got
Because
an incredible balance on it.
it's incredible. It's really sort of such a pure expression of what, a vineyard in Pritchard Hill, and in this case, our Gandona vineyard, can do with sort of this Cabernet.
So what did this go through? What's the process on this one? Is it 100% cap?
It's 100% cap every vintage.
Okay, so what's the process? You got the concrete tanks, the oak. Tell us like what this goes through from harvest to bottle.
So really one of the great things that we have at Gandona is like we have our own vineyard crew. We do our own vineyard management. We have a consultant for it that helps us out once in a while if we need to. But we have our own crew in the vineyard all year round. And that's very important because, before that, we haven't had it since about 2015. We've had our own crew. If you don't have that, you have to bring in a vineyard crew, and they can only come on certain days and certain times. So we can be selective what we do in the vineyard, which is very important. That's where it starts, right? It really all starts in the vineyard with these wines. So if we also, for instance, if we harvest, we don't have to harvest everything at once.
Because you got your own crew.
We can keep going through that vineyard. If we're at the end, we can start at the beginning. We can just kind of harvest, which is actually very important for the Cab Franc, because Cab Franc is one of those varietals that doesn't really ripen evenly. So you'll have clusters that are much further along than others. So you don't want to harvest those yet, right?
You're not going all Yakim here, berry by berry, but you're going cluster by cluster, right?
Yeah, okay. Cluster by cluster, yeah. Yeah. So for them, we do the same thing for, of course, like Gandona. We wait for the right moments to harvest, and that's where it all starts. And of course, the Gandona grapes really come mostly from the blocks that are on the steepest slopes. We go up to about 40% in this vineyard slope. Difficult to really farm, but to really great results for the Gandona. So we'll start with selective harvesting. We'll come here. We all do concrete fermentation on these wines, and then they will go in barrel, all French oak barrels. And they will go in the barrel basically for about 2 years, 18 to 24 months.
Okay.
And they'll sit in our cave. And at that point, they will be bottled. We'll keep them about 2 years in bottle, and then we'll release them.
Now, is that new French oak barrels, or how long do you use your barrels here?
Yeah. So for a Cabernet like this, you usually use quite a lot of new oak. The 17 probably has about 60% new oak on there. That's for Cabernet is kind of important to really get that sort of smoother tannin structure. The barrels are essential in that. So that we have a barrel program for our Gandona. So we keep our barrels anywhere from about 3-4 years. So we use some neutral oak barrels for part of the wine production. After that, we'll sell them all.
All of your wines have the most beautiful legs, Anton.
They really do.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is our Fago do Arco. This is our port style wine, because we cannot call it really a port, but it's really a very authentic port. Very authentic because also we grow the grape varietal that they would normally use in Portugal to make port, which is Terroir Nacional.
Okay.
And we have about 1/3 of an acre on this property that we grow this
on
grape,
the estate.
On the estate, yeah. So we grow this Portuguese grape here, so we can really make an authentic style port. It's called Fago do Arco because I told a little earlier that Manuel, spent a lot of time at his grandfather's farm in Portugal, and this is actually the name of the farm. It was Quinto Fago do Arco. That was the name of the farm. It kind of means sort of natural arch of stone because there was a natural stone formation on the property. So that's where the farm got its name from.
Nice.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Very nice. It's so good. So you were talking earlier about your favorite grape. You said it's Cabernet Sauvignon, and that's it. But is there a bottle that stands out
That's very good.
in your lifetime? Like there was that one bottle you had that was just crazy, like this.
Yeah,
like a DRC or something like that.
Yeah. No, it's actually for me. It was like a Stagland Cabernet Sauvignon,
Stagland.
the 25th anniversary wine. That was just a really nice Cabernet. I think so. It really shows what the Napa Valley Cabernet can be. I mean, it's because it's like Napa caps can be really big, but at the same time, they can also be very elegant, very smooth tan structure. And that's what I personally like. So that was one of the first bottles that I had as a really good quality Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. And I took it to a steakhouse, and it was just a great experience. Yes.
Yeah, we have some Staglin. We did again, Hidden Vine did a whole Staglin. They're really interesting. They really go find some good winemakers and bring them down there. They really do.
This is exceptional.
It is.
That is nice, huh?
It is.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
It's not too
This
sweet.
is so good. It's not easy. We are how many miles out of the way up this hill here to get to your winery? It's 2-3 miles, right?
Yeah.
3 miles up the hill, right?
Trail.
And while we were filming this, a couple had this port.
Yeah.
And they journeyed up here.
They came up here. Actually, they drove all the way from Glen Ellen, which is on the other side of the mountain in Sonoma County.
Wow.
Oh.
Because that's where they tried it in the restaurant last night.
And Anton did not turn them away. He went and got them support, which was fantastic. So, well, Anton, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything you've done. I think, can we get a quick little cave tour before we go?
Yeah, of course.
That'll be awesome. All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you very much.